Good afternoon, all. It gives me great pleasure to be able to join you all this afternoon. I'm grateful to One Life Initiative for this opportunity to share knowledge and share skills about the Brave Heart Initiative model for sexual and gender-based intervention. Our topic for this afternoon is understanding the underbelly of sexual and gender-based violence interventions. I know you may be wondering, what is underbelly? I assume so many of you have also checked it up. Anyway, it's just for us to know the nitty-gritty, for us to be able to decipher what is idealistic and what is realistic, what is practical and what is proven to work. My pleasure. So Brave Heart Initiative for Youth and Women, popularly known as Brave Hearts, we began comprehensive sexual and gender-based interventions in the year 2010. And this was an outcome of our in-school outreaches. We had findings from our interactions with teenage girls. We had these outreaches from the year 2007 to 2010. And we got shocking feedback about sexual harassment, sexual violations from these teenage girls amongst about 22 secondary schools in Akoko-Edo local government. This led us to strategic planning for coordinated response to the outrageous number of cases reported to Brave Hearts. From 2010 till date, it's been several years. We've done phenomenally well with providing a safe and enabling environment for survivors. We can say that we've broken the culture of silence, because the increase of cases that we have is not necessarily because more people are being sexually violated, but because we've empowered communities enough for them to speak up. So the culture of silence has been broken. Quickly, I'd like us to know that we have a three-pronged strategic approaches to our intervention work. We have enabling environments, and under the enabling environments, we do work around policy advocacy, formulation of policies and laws, reviews of these laws. If you have a law, for example, that says a 40-year-old man who sexually violates a 3-year-old child should have life imprisonment, and then there is a clause for an option of fine, and many of these rapists influences the magistrate or the judges and take advantage of that clause that allows them to pay monetary fines, and at the end of the day, they are left off the hook. So that is why our laws periodically need to be reviewed. We also need to monitor and evaluate the enforcement of our laws. So how fairly have these laws been used? Because in all fairness, if we are to use the criminal code, for example, and we use the full weight of the law that is provided in the criminal code, we would have even gotten a little bit of progress, in addition to VAP laws, child rights laws, gender-based violence laws that have recently been enacted. So that is why for us, policy and advocacy is critical. Our second strategic approach is behavior change communication. This includes community mobilizations, interpersonal relations, media campaigns, and education entertainment. Community mobilization is very key. Our organization is very community focused. We work with the communities, we have their input, we have their involvement, and we have their investment. Many NGOs, all they have from communities is input and involvement. You hardly have community invest. But in Brave Hearts, both human resource and finance are from our communities. What do I mean by human resource? Most of the staff that work with us are from this community. For me, those are contributions from committee persons. We've had families, for example, the Oloris. The father has worked with Braverts. Two of the children has also worked with us, and we currently have the daughter volunteering. We've had the Afedias. The mother had worked with us. Two of the children have worked with us. We have the Ezekiels. Promise, our staff who we lost, unfortunately, to an accident last year. May our soul rest in peace. We've had two of our brothers also work with us. We have the Brymots, Rhoda, who we also lost last year. May her soul rest in peace. And we've had Rhoda's siblings work with us as volunteers and as staff. So several of the families within Akoko Edo who have worked in support of the work that we do. I do not take for granted those human resources that we have, because these are young people who are passionate, who are hardworking, who are selfless, and have been working to end sexual and gender-based violence in Akoko Edo local government. So that is why community mobilization is key. When we talk about investment also, as you are aware, none of Braveheart cases have enjoyed a donor support. While we wish and pray and continue to advocate for more development partners to support the work that we do, we take cognizance of the fact that the community's investment has sustained us thus far in all our cases. Whereby you see market women who will wrap 2,000 naira in a piece of paper as a donation to the effort of Braveheart initiative. That is very key to me. We also talked about interpersonal relations. It's very key for us to have one-on-one conversations. This afternoon, a Muslim cleric from Ososo community visited me. He has a relative who was a victim of sexual violence. But from the discussion about the relative, we talked about child rights laws and child protection generally. He never believed that in Edo State that a 14-year-old is not permitted to marry. He kept on quoting his Islamic laws, but I had to educate him about that. It took me about 2 hours, but it was worthwhile, because you saw him from his initial defensive and argumentative position to say, oh, we learn every day. Thank you. So that is why interpersonal communication and interpersonal relations. The traditional rulers, for example, you need to seek one-on-one audience. I recall when we started, many traditional rulers believed that they were in charge of their communities. So I didn't have any right to tell them not to mediate over sexual assault cases. But I had to relate with them one-on-one to educate them to say, as a traditional ruler, your jurisdiction is civil matters. A sexual assault case is a criminal matter. And with time, mutual respect, they were able to shift their base. The third strategic approach from Braveheart is service provision. Under service provision, we have psychosocial support. This includes follow-up visits, counseling sessions, and a lot of referrals, because we lack the professional expertise for mental health. So we do referrals also. We can't do everything. And it's good to be honest, to know where your limitations are and when to do referral. For medicals, we support investigations, examinations, preventive services, and treatments. Preventive services is very key. An example is emergency contraceptive to prevent pregnancy from the rape, post-exposure prophylaxis to prevent HIV transmission, hepatitis vaccination to prevent hepatitis. Another service that we support as an organization is Paralegal Aid. We are not lawyers, but we support police investigation, we support police prosecution, and even Ministry of Justice prosecution. But most of our cases have been prosecuted by the police. So we render logistic support to the police. And very importantly, another service that we render is called the escort service. The escort service is a show of solidarity. We escort our survivor to the police station, we escort our survivor to the hospitals, and most importantly to the courts. So if a case lasts for 10 years, be sure that Braveheart will not miss any of the hearings. So if we have 21 cases in 5 courts, it means that my staff will have to appear in each of these courts for every time that any of the cases that we are supporting is called upon. So these are 3 strategic approaches. So at this point, I would like to take any questions before we delve into today. These are kind of prelude for you to have a better understanding to the approach that we use in our own work in our organization. But today we are going to look at the types of gender-based violence, factors that promote the culture of rape, how can we reduce vulnerability to sexual and gender-based violence. So people will say, how do we protect or prevent gender-based violence? Where are the places that we can go to seek help? And if there is a rape case, for example, and as a concerned citizen, it may be you. What step do you need to take? It may be your relative. How do you support that person? And it may be a client referred to your organization or institution where you work. How do you manage a rape case? Then what does the law say? If we look at GBV in the eyes of the law, what are the legal frameworks? What are some of the legal mechanisms that have been put in place? What laws, what policies do we have as a country, nationally, or state-specific laws that we have in our various states? And by the time we are going home today, as young people, we should be able to know the steps that we can take to stop gender-based violence in our own sphere of contact. Like I tell people, brighten the corner where you are. So quickly, based on the approach that you've learned about, we'll take 5 questions. And like as I often do, there's an incentive for asking a question. They say, who no asks, no go know. So in asking, you learn more. And in seeking clarification, you become more professional in the work that we do. So I give the floor to the participants. We are going to be doing this for 4 minutes. It's 4:26 p.m. So by 4:30, I'll respond to your questions. I will dive deeper into today's agenda. Thank you. So thank you so much for these questions. I have told One Life Initiative to compile them because in the course of our sessions, we actually have addressed them. So we'll keep them. By the time we are done and none of these issues have been tackled appropriately, then we can go back to them and respond to them. So quickly, we'll be looking at what even constitutes gender-based violence. When we say that an issue has been regarded to be a GBV, simple. Gender-based violence is a violence that is directed at an individual simply based on his or her biological sex or gender identity. So if I go to the motor park and a young man sees me at the motor park, he is the conductor and he wants me to get into his bus, and he say, oh, Sissy Yellow, grabs my hand and wants me to go into his car, and I said, no, I don't want to use this particular bus. He gets angry and begins to shove me. And I know that if a young man gets there, the same scenario will not play out. Or you are walking in the market, especially where they sell clothes. Yellow, all manner of catcalling happens. And at the end of the day, a young man is walking by the same cloth line. They want him to buy. Good afternoon, Oga. Come check this out. You see clear difference between the way the lady is referred to and how these sellers or marketers relate to the male. Now, most cases, it's always the female that are most affected. But GBV are not limited to only women. A classical example is 4 young men in a Camry strolling from one location to the other, and they are accosted by the police. You see the kind of mannerism that the police will display to these 4 young men compared to if it was 4 ladies that were in a car taking a stroll, and police may probably not even stop them. We just see them, oh, they chop life, and just let them go. Then immediately they see 4 young men or 5 young men in the car, the next thing that comes to police mind is they are up to what? No good. There's something sinister in their motive. So this is how gender-based violence manifests. When you target a particular gender just because of their sex, and a particular violence is committed against them. Now, gender-based violence can be physical, can be sexual. As far back as secondary school, I remembered in the boarding house how young male will hit a lady on the breast. Oh, we are killing sandfly. Oh, there's a mosquito perching on your breast. What stopped the young man from saying, Priscilla, there's a mosquito on your chest? He goes ahead to slap you on your chest. In secondary schools, again, and also in higher institutions, we've seen it 100 level, where you see a young man who will fold a piece of paper and throw the paper target at a female and hits a female with that. Sometimes those may start as harassment, but we've gone ahead to see men beat up women who turn down their sexual advances. It can be sexual, like rape. It can even be verbal assault. Every time you are passing by, if you see some text messages some young men will send to a lady just because he turned down their sexual advances, it can be emotional. It can be psychological. It can be by threats, real life threats, coercion, economic or educational deprivation. And some of the common forms that we've witnessed in Nigeria are rape, molestation, wife beating, acid attacks, and a lot of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a big challenge for us now. Also, when we look at some of the very frequent ones, we look at physical assault, for example, that we had a lot of cases in Nigeria. Sexual assault. Forced marriage is another key gender-based violence issue. Not just for the underage marriage. There are a lot of marriages in Nigeria, even among adults, where the parents will insist that the man is from another tribe just because they feel that they have the legitimacy or authority over the female, and they just take advantage of the sex and begin to maltreat women. You see some women that remain unmarried just because of societal pressure on them. So forced marriage can be underage marriage, and it can even be for adults. It's not from your consent. That wasn't your choice, but they do that to you just because you are female. This happens a whole lot. Female genital mutilation. This is a classic case of violation of a woman's rights. It's a classic form of gender-based violence. Yes, you may say, oh, Male children are also circumcised. So why are we complaining about female? I tell people, you don't have anything called female circumcision. What you are having is female genital cutting. What you have is female genital mutilation. I think when we use circumcision, we are making light of that violation that is occurring to our girls and our women. Because when you check the purposes for male circumcision, you have a lot of medical benefits. I'm in Edo State, one of the states where you have some of the highest number and incidents of female genital mutilation. You have them more among the Asans and the Benins, and they share the same ideology that they want to moderate and regulate a woman's sexuality. So why would you want to regulate the sexuality or sexual pleasure of a female and you don't do the same for the male? That's why you see they ask the female to remain as virgins, and you encourage masculinity, sexual prowess of the male child. You do not ask yourself, this male child that you've been encouraging to explore their sexuality, who do they do the exploration with? So these are key issues. Denial of resources and opportunities is a very core form of GBV in Nigeria. I'd like to mention that we hardly focus on this particular form of gender-based violence. Sexual harassment at workplaces is GBV. When you ask your staff to have sex with you, when you demand sex for grades, those are forms of GBV. You are denying the resources and the opportunities that these people are entitled to, and is a form of gender-based violence. Psychological and emotional abuse. This is more rampant within the marriage institution. A lot of married people are going through a lot of psychological trauma. You see the man, he will not beat you. They start from denying you. There are women who have said that for years, their husband, nothing like sex in the bedroom, is locked up. You need money for food, they don't give to you. They pay your child school fees. They starve you, they frustrate you. You don't have a say over anything that happens in the house. So, most time we pay attention to the physical manifestation of gender-based violence. But I can assure you that the psychological and emotional abuses carry far more weight, because mental health is a big challenge for us as a country. And we need to begin to look beyond. When you see that family and you think that everything is okay. And that's why we encourage people to speak up. And that's why, like me, I would tell people, you need a therapist, you need a professional. Yes, as a development worker or an NGO practitioner, I'll be able to give you just basic counseling. But there are certain issues that are beyond counseling. You need to move beyond them. Because if you have the Stockholm syndrome, for example, whereby you are going through abuse and you don't even want to be rescued. So you see a lot of victims of gender-based violence who they've complained to you, you try to help them and they don't want to leave because they still have low self-esteem. So a lot of things may be going on psychologically. Such kind of persons, what they need at that time is not just your basic counseling team. They need professional help. They need to see a clinical psychologist. They need expert services. We know that yes, mental health experts are few and their services are expensive, but we need to stay alive. We need to be able to address the suicide rates that we have within our communities. So that is why we need to prioritize the mental health of Nigerians, even young Nigerians. You see young people that are not yet married and they are in a relationship where they are abused on a daily basis and they are unable to address these issues. They just remain with these abusive boyfriends and see it as the norm. So a lot still needs to be done as regards these issues. This evening, One Life Initiative have asked us to look at the factors that promote the culture of rape. First, I need us to begin with, before you are looking at those factors, have we accepted that we have a culture of rape? Because there are still a lot of arguments about rape culture. Let's look at what we mean by culture of rape. is simply a sociological concept in which rape has become pervasive and normalized due to societal attitudes about gender and sexuality. And it's very important that as young people, we start by accepting that Nigeria currently has a culture of rape. This is very obvious from the multiple posts and comments on our diverse media platforms. Did they just start? No. This has been on for a lot of years. We listen to our religious leaders, how they give justification, excuses for sexual violations. We listen to our traditional rulers. We listen to our family members. And we listen to friends. This whole idea of victim blaming and victim shaming did not start today, but we are grateful for social and digital media that has helped us amplify these issues. Now, I'd like us to know, 10 years ago, when there was a rape case, we say, oh, and maybe the victim is 20 years. Oh, it was the way she was dressed. It was the location she was. Why would she visit a male alone in his house? I remember a very renowned pastor who used to say, oh, whenever a lady comes to his house to visit him, he will ensure that he opens his door wide open, he raises his window, his curtains, he raises his curtains so that everything will be clear for everyone to see. But what we did not see wrong in that narrative is the fact that he's saying he does not have self-control, because one key element of sexual violence is lack of consent. It's as simple. Or an induced consent. What do I mean by an induced consent? Consent that was coerced. That's by force. Consent, for example, I am drunk. It means I'm unconscious. Or you come behind me and you gave me a resounding slap. Unanticipated. I have suffered it twice. So I look at people when they argue to say, oh, one man cannot rape one lady. Only one man. Sit or stand in a position and from nowhere, I'm not saying a planko. I'm not saying you were hit with a fire extinguisher. I mean a slap, just a hand slap from the back of your head or at any side of your head, from either the right ear or the left ear. I have received such a slap. That was when I knew when they say people see stars. Not only did I see stars, I saw the colors of my stars. And I went dizzy. And within that moment, when I was dizzy, anything could happen. So first is the fact that as long as we have begun to normalize things that are abnormal, then we have a culture. And sadly, it is a culture of rape. So by accepting that we have such a culture, then we can begin to move to addressing it and looking for a way to reverse such culture, because that's not the kind of culture we should be proud of. Now, we are faced with a global health crisis. And unfortunately, before the COVID-19 pandemic came, we were already battling with issues of sexual violence. So today, we have a sexual violence epidemic coupled with a COVID-19 pandemic. I'll say that again. Nigeria today is suffering a sexual violence epidemic in addition to COVID-19 pandemic. Both of them are happening simultaneously, and it has diverse effects. Now, looking at some of these factors that promote the culture of rape, we'll start basically with the number one, which is undeniably the leading factor that has enabled the pervasiveness of sexual violence in our nation. Patriarchal norms tracking is simply a system of male domination. So how does it start? Socialization. And like I tell everyone, socialization is key at the family level. So many things that you learn that you find it difficult to change later on in life. They talk about raising a child and the person growing up with those knowledge that have been imparted for a lifetime. And socialization can be conscious or unconscious. There are some things that you are told to do. Some things you are not told to do. You observed and you began doing them. I'll give you an example. A visitor comes to your house. They give the visitor a bottle of Coke. And you go there to do long throat on the visitor's Coke. The visitor offers you that Coke. Your mother may not have to speak. Neither will your father voice out anything. If you are smart enough, you will see your eye matching with his eyes. That's what we call non-verbal communication. And at that moment, woe betide you if you take that Coke and drink it. Even when they offer you the Coke without you going to do long eye, you still end up saying, "Thank you, ma. Thank you, sir." Why? That Coke was meant for the stranger, not for you. Which point am I getting at? What we are told as children and reinforced, we were told at home, then we go to the school, which is another key institution or agency for socialization. They matter a whole lot. You grow up from a family that promotes inequality of the sexes. You start, even before a child is born, a CT scan or any of the, I say CT scan, a pregnancy scan, point of correction, is facilitated. And they tell you, oh, you are expecting a boy child. What happens? By default, you see the parents immediately begin to shop for what? Blue clothes. This is a fetus, an unborn child, and the family is already dictating the color of clothes for that child. And you are buying blue. A child that will be born and tomorrow you are saying, why does boy like blue? It was acculturation. It was a socialization process. You made him to like blue because he came into the world and was seeing blue. There were blue trousers, blue pants, blue napkins, blue nightwears, blue sweatshirts. So what do you expect? He grows to like blue. You see, a lot of people tell you that girls like pink. They did not just wake up one day to like pink. There were people who were buying pink when their toys were pink. Oh, it is girls that like dolls. You trained them. You were socialized to like dolls. Is there anything wrong in liking dolls? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. But if you really want to know, provide both. Have blue shirts, have pink shirts, have green shirts. In fact, don't even start doing color blindness at that particular point in time. Let them be color blind. Let them choose whatsoever they want. So this socialization process is so key because this is also what leads to toxic masculinity, where you have young men that are terribly egocentric. And not only do they move from this very negative ego, some of them translate it to misogyny. Now, misogyny is hatred for women. Who are you to talk when men are talking? Where did they learn it from? There are family meetings. The wives are never there. There were community meetings. Women were never given a say. Go to all the community groups where they will say youths in the community. How many youth groups have you seen a female? Go around all the communities. When you hear that the youths in the community are meeting, it is male youth that you often see there. So it starts from the family to our schools and it translates into the community. I'll give you an example of what happens in the school. Back then, they asked the boys to do what? To darken the board. And the girls should what? To sweep the classes. Then the board moved. They were no longer boards to be darkened because they were no longer chalks. They are now using boards where you use markers to write. But the boys are still not sweeping. The girls are still doing most of the work. I have a colleague in India who pushed for more girls, more enrollment of girls in their schools. Guess what? They recorded a very high level of girls enrolled in schools, and they ticked their box. I would like those of us that are programming around girl empowerment or girl enablement, as the term may be, or whatsoever terminology you want to use, to pay attention to this. This organization in India pushed for more enrollment of girls, convinced families to allow their girls to go to school, and the girls were going to school. 2 years later, they decided to do evaluation of these girls. Before they went for that large evaluation, they realized that many of the girls were performing very poorly in school, and they were wondering what was happening. Why are the boys still leading? Why are the girls so backward? When I mean terribly backward, they discovered that these girls go to school, but they are not permitted to attend classes. So are the girls in school? Yes, they go in the morning, they sign the school register, and they are made to do domestic work in school. So they will go and wash the toilet while the boys are in class. They will be doing cleaning of the school, just the normal things that they do. If there are about 10 classes in a day, they may probably attend 1 or 2. The remaining classes, they miss them because the school will give them other work to do. So this is very, very key. And that is why we need to pay attention to some of these races. Many of the homes, you've already been told that you are superior to the female. You finish eating, you dump the plate in the sink. You are 16 years old. You are the last child of the house. Your elder sister is 36. She's 10 years older than you. But you do not see any reason why you should wash the plate that you used to eat. So you grow up, you have girlfriends, you have wives, and it just translates. Then you move from not washing plates to not flushing the toilet. You think that these things are absurd, but they happen. A married man with 4 children, we use the toilet. I did not mean urine. We defecate in the toilet and leave it unflushed for the wife to go there to flush. How many minutes does it take you to flush? But these are, I also see them as victims. It's the way that the society have raised them. So they have to do what I call unlearning. Yes, we think that all we do in life is to learn. No, as long as we are humans and we are alive, every day is to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. So if you know a particular thing and you have a superior argument based on research and evidence, if you really are someone who wants to progress, who wants growth, sustainable development, then you should be open to change. And one way to be open to change is to seek newer knowledge, because there are emerging information, there are newer knowledge in the work that we do. Still looking at the factors that promote culture of rape. Religious fundamentalism. People who misquote, misinterpret our religious books. Bible say, Quran say, and people have used religion as a spell to make people live in bondage. So that is why the education, take notes, I did not say sensitization, education of our religious leader is central to our fight against sexual and gender-based violence. I know a lot of traditional leaders and religious leaders in my community who years ago we always insist that it was dressing, it was poor mannerism, the young people were proud. Some even say that the girl was proud, but we have one a very renowned leader in the Anglican church here in Igara, who unfortunately knew a pastor in another church whose wife became sexually violated in a very horrific manner. And at that point, he had to change his mind. But I ask, do you need someone close to you to be violated before you change your mind? So we need to begin to address these issues. One more reason why rape has become more like a culture is poor confidence on the legal system, the police and the judiciary. I tell you, rape is fueled by no sanction. The impunity that rapists enjoy in Nigeria is one major reason why it has become so pervasive. Yes, Brother Shehu invites Sister Juliet to the house, sexually violates her, and Sister Juliet does nothing. So Shehu feels, since Juliet did not do anything, if I go to Nkechi, nothing will happen. He goes to Nkechi goes to the police to report. Police pick Shehu, and Shehu pays police. Maybe they ask, police ask Nkechi to bring 5,000 naira for arrest. Whoa, I don't have any money. Nkechi leaves. And they tell Shehu, see, person wey get case say no even get money, just settle us, make they go. He gives them 50,000. He leaves. That's what? Second victim from only Shehu. If you check Brave Act cases, we have successfully worked with the police to have conviction of 16 sexual offenders. Out of these 15 sexual offenders, 6 of them were serial rapists. Look at the ratio of 6 to 15. That's more than 1/3. They were serial rapists. The last convict we had on the 6th of May, this abuser defied a 5-year-old child. That child was the 7th child in the same community. I did not mean he was going to other villages. One community, Ibilo community, Akoko Edo local government area of Edo State. This man defied other people's children. And they will do family meeting. We don't want to say anything about it. So it promotes a culture of rape. Till this particular family stood their ground. And I'm very happy that they pursued justice. Because let me also tell you people about families that opt for settlement of rape cases. Because you cannot determine what is long-term or what is short-term effects of sexual violence on the victim or the survivor, as the case may be, one has to be very careful with withdrawing charges. The child that was violated in the case I just mentioned, the incident took place on the 27th of April. This child received medical attention that very week, certified okay. The case went to court, tried. The suspect confessed to the police and also pleaded guilty in court. Until the trial ended, the 5-year-old child was hale and healthy. A week after the trial, the child suddenly developed a critical medical ailment. I don't know if any of you are medical persons, but for as many of you that are listening, please Google urethral prolapse. Urethral prolapse. A 5-year-old girl developed urethral prolapse about 3 weeks after she was sexually violated. A lot of persons would have already concluded. Imagine if it was a case they settled. Shebi, your daughter is fine now. Abeg, we are the same family. And now 3 weeks later, the child started battling for her life. We had to take the interventions of medical experts and consultants from the ERA specialist teaching hospital to save that child. Most of the victims or survivors of sexual violence have suffer lifelong consequences of those violence. Not just even the mental health or the trauma. I am talking about physical, medical complications from the violations. So these are very key issues that we need to look at. Other factors that have made the culture of rape as pervasive as it is low information on access to service. People do not even know where to go to. You are in Ibadan. You know, I can go to the police to report. But by the time you go to police and report, what next? You do not know. Okay, you go to the health facility and they say, they are supposed to have a doctor and there is no doctor in your health facility, what else can you do? So that is why the database of all the institutions, both civil society organizations and government institutions, or even private agencies and institutions, needs to be shared widely so that people can know where to access service. And most importantly, people should also know what to do before they get to those service points. For example, we encourage all survivors of rape not to have their baths, because when you bathe, you wash out key evidence in that assault. So such information needs to be provided to community members and to ourselves, so that we'll know what to do at those points. We also need to continue to do education of both the girl child and the boy child on self-esteem and assertiveness. The boy child needs to be assertive. We had a 3-year-old boy who was sexually defied by a 19-year-old boy, a homosexual rape. This 3-year-old could not walk properly for about, I think, 6 to 7 days, had a lot of difficulties with defecating. That's not the only anal rape that we've had as an organization. We've also had another teenage boy who a group of young men who were a member of a particular cult gave money to. They used to send him around, and on one of these fateful days they ended up sexually violating him. So the issues of sexual violence is not limited to the girl child. We have a lot of boy child that are also going through the horrifying experience of sexual violence. So I encourage us all to educate our young people, educate adults, even educate older women about sexual violence, and work together to end this culture of rape. So we'll quickly look at how to manage a sexual assault case. I know that our topic is gender-based violence, but I would be giving scenario of a rape case, which is a form of gender-based violence. This is basically more of the procedure for many criminal cases, although they vary slightly. So for every sexual assault case that is reported to you, I am assuming that you work with an institution. So I will encourage that as an individual, if you want to intervene, that you may need to reach out to a more professional person, because that person may at least have an understanding of the protocols to be followed or the steps to be taken. So if, assuming you work with One Life Initiative, or you work with an organization in Lagos, or you are even in Sokoto, and you are informed about a sexual violence case, please, documentation is key. Documentation is very key. When I mean 100% key. And when we take testimonial, or when survivors share their stories with us or narrate their experience of that incident, we encourage you not to interrupt. If they are crying, don't say, "Oh, stop crying." You can offer them serviette paper, you can offer them tissue paper, you can offer them a handkerchief, a clean one. If they want a hug, if it's female to female, you can do a hug. So we need to consider all this. So but be as attentive as possible. What I encourage you to do, take notes. If there are areas you are not clear about, write it down. When the person finish, you now say, "Oh, you said when you opened the door, he now pushed you on the bed." Okay, between the time he opened the door and pushed you on the bed, did he close the door? So what are you doing? You are asking for what? Clarity. Not by the time the person is speaking, you are saying, hold on, as he come, that's not nice. And please, if you know that you are not empathetic, don't even bother. Because if you are judgmental, we are human beings. Nobody is looking for sympathy. If what you have to offer a sexual assault person is sympathy, you can show it. Just keep it where you are. If you know you don't have that patient, my dear, it's not mandatory. Refer them to someone that has the patient. So if you want to do this, you have to do it right. There are no two ways about intervening in a sexual assault case. The reason why I'm saying this is an error from you, who is the first responder, can make that case 0 or 100, can make the case worsened or what? You've improved the situation for the survivor. That is why on your own, you need to learn counseling. It is key. Yes, you'll be counseling in church. You'll be surprised that half of the things you were telling church members, you were busy judging them. In sexual violation cases, you are not permitted to judge. You are not permitted to begin to go spiritual. Yes, if I feel that this person needs prayer, not within my work environment, I can do that after my workspace. Because this person, if he wanted a spiritual leader, the person would have sought services from their church. They had their pastors, they had their leaders before they came to you as an institution. So we must learn to keep our religious biases somewhere. If you want to ask questions, ask it very honestly, but be very careful that you yourself, you are not stigmatizing, you are not judging. So that is why we really need to take notes before we delve into intervening into sexual violence case. Please, documentation is very key. Please and please and please. At the end of this session, I'll be sharing slides with you. I will also give you a copy of the Brave Act Initiative Sexual and Gender-Based Case Management Form. This form will help you improve documentation, because sometimes it's not enough to say do it this way. You may just need a sample to guide you. Our form in Brave Act, for example, have a biodata session where we look at background information on the survivor. What's the age of the survivor? What's the full names, the sex, occupation, contact number, even the relationship to the suspects. Because by the time you collect this data and you want to analyze it, it will now help you to know, oh, out of the 20 cases, 8 of them, they were raped by their neighbors. 2 of them were raped by church members. 3 of them were raped by strangers. That is why this information are key. For the suspects, we also get details about the suspect, his age, his occupation. We'll look at when this incident happened, which community did it happen, when the incident was reported to a family. We are very careful not jumping to say when was it reported to police, because most time you either tell a friend or you tell a family before you even head to the police or health facility. So we track those various times from the time the assault was recorded or reported to a family member, to a friend or any other acquaintance, to when it was reported to the police, to when it was reported to the hospital, to when it comes to us. Some cases get to the police and the police inform us. Some cases go straight to the hospital because the family saw the child in a pool of her blood. Uniwala's case, the first place they rushed to was where? The health facility. Because you needed to save her while they were in the hospital, they now sent one of them to go to the police station to report. So in most of my cases, I always encourage people to stop over in the police station. But if it's critical, please go ahead and go to a health facility. When they get to the health facility, we can send any other relative to let the police know that this incident have occurred. The survivor is currently in the health facility. Police can go there to ascertain, pending when that person is strong enough to be able to go to the police station. Then we look at the time services are rendered. So in most cases, you hear that somebody goes to the police station after 8 to report. And the police say, madam, now tomorrow you go come back with your pikin. So the incident that happened at 8 o'clock, and we know that rape cases is time bound. As the hours are going, most of the evidences are being erased. Then the medical care that the child needs are also time bound, especially the preventive care. The faster or earlier a survivor of rape begins emergency contraceptive, the better the results. Example of an emergency contraceptive is Postinor, that's by Society for Family Health, or Post Pill by DKT. I know a lot of you have a lot of persons have misconception. They tell you, Postinor na to spoil belle na for abortion. It is a lie. It is to prevent pregnancy. A pregnancy that have not occurred, will you go and be aborting it? Answer is capital no. So it does not even allow the sperm to meet with what? The egg. And it needs the sperm to meet with the egg for fertilization to take place. I don't have to be a medical expert to know that simple biology. So there are emergency contraceptives. And as a young girl, you should know about them. Because in all honesty, none of us is safe. Yes, sadly, that is our reality. No one is safe. And that is why you hear us say, until every woman is safe, no one is actually safe in this country. So that is why we pay attention to the time that these services are rendered. If you go to a health facility and you report a case on Friday, they say, na weekend, the doctor don't go, come back on Monday. So what happened? This survivor stays for the entire weekend till Monday before she's able to access medical care. So that is why your form or your data collection tool needs to be very comprehensive, so that when you want to address lapses either in the judiciary or in any of the justice process or health facility, you have evidence to address them.